Hi, I'm Amaryllis Shepens, and today we will look at the Civil Rights Act, Title IX of the Education Amendments, and what the Belgian Constitution states on education. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was proposed by President John F. Kennedy and later signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson. Leading up to the act being signed, many people protested. A very well-known example is the bus boycott of 1955 in Montgomery, protesting against segregated public facilities. The March on Washington of 1963 is probably the most influential of all protests. This peaceful mass demonstration was led by Martin Luther King Jr. During this protest, he talked about a world where people were not divided by race. One of the demands of this March on Washington was desegregation of all schools. A year later, the Civil Rights Act was signed. Martin Luther King has become an icon for the civil rights movement and equality. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 consists of 11 separate titles. I will discuss 3 that I believe have strongly affected the education system. Title I covers voting rights and has affected education as it has ensured voting in school board meetings. This has affected mostly the teachers, but inadvertently the students as well. Title IV covers desegregation in public schools, including elementary and secondary schools, alongside public colleges. This has had such a large influence on the education of children. Now all children can attend all schools. Title VII covers equal employment opportunities. This title prohibits discrimination on basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin when it comes to hiring, referring, promoting, and firing employees. It is obvious that this title has greatly affected teachers across America. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 tackles the gender issue. It states, "No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance." This title covers several types of discrimination: sexual harassment, equal opportunities for both sexes in the athletic department, discrimination based on pregnancy, discrimination in schools programs such as science, technology, engineering, and math. Back in the day, science and math were considered subjects for boys, and things like sewing and cooking were considered female tasks. The world now looks very different. A great example of a program that is now able to exist because of this is Coding for Girls, a program that promotes coding and computer programming for girls. This program has now expanded to 50 states. The Belgian Constitution. Title II, Article 24.1 of the Belgian Constitution states that education is free and that neutral education is instated. This neutrality implies respect for the philosophical, ideological, and religious beliefs of both the parents and the students. Catholics, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, and others all attend the same school. The 3 discussed elements cover 3 main topics: race, gender, and religion. These 3 elements have caused a lot of problems throughout history, and today we are trying to deal with them. Thanks to these laws, there have been many improvements, but we still fight for equality today. Sadly, there are still racial, gender, and religious conflicts throughout the world. Now, how do these elements factor into education and day-to-day life in school? How do they affect students and teachers? When we are born, we are innocent and oblivious to societal problems. We go to school and accept that things are how they are. When we look back in time, it was the norm to have all boy and all girl schools. Even the subjects were biased. Boys got more science, and girls had to learn how to sew. But that's how it was, and most people did not think twice about it. When we look even further back in time, only boys got an education. Girls would have to stay home. This would mean that a large part of our cohort would not be here now, let alone that Stacy would be allowed to teach us. Now I'm going to use my childhood to illustrate the effects of these laws. I grew up going to an international school, and yes, I'm very aware of the fact that this is an extreme example. But in all fairness, when we zoom out and dilute the diversity a bit, we get an image of many classes today. In today's globalized society, many classes have kids from multiple cultural backgrounds and religions attending the same school. Plus, when we see how smoothly things run at an international school like mine, we have proof that we can all learn and teach under one roof without conflict. So, back to my childhood. In my class, there were boys and girls from 16 different nationalities. There were only 25 kids in my class. We all came from different religious and cultural backgrounds, and yet we were all in one class and attended all the same classes. It was never the source of a problem. On the contrary, it was a source of knowledge. We learned from each other. How did these laws directly affect the classroom? Well, for starters, I had male and female teachers, also from different cultural backgrounds. Students also became sources of knowledge. We learned from each other. We all brought our respective lunches, sushi, sandwiches, samosas. We learned to be accepting of others being different. And yes, something as seemingly trivial as lunch taught us. On international nights, we wore our respective national clothing. Sure, we laughed and giggled when we saw each other, but we learned. I grew up not realizing that the world did not always look like this. I never thought it was weird that others had different skin color, dressed differently, or ate different food. Having male and female classmates and teachers was the most normal thing. Had I been born 60, 70 years ago, I would not have grown up this way. I would not have been confronted with male and female teachers or students from different backgrounds. As a matter of fact, I might not even have gone to school at all. And look, I'm trying to teach myself now. What I'm trying to illustrate is that not only do these laws allow for all of us to go to school together, they stimulate a multicultural environment in which we can learn from each other. Boys and girls, men and women, Catholics, Muslims and Jews, African Americans, Caucasians and Asians, all of us get an education together. And this was made possible in part by these laws.